When you think of the French, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For me, it's the Eiffel Tower, Statue of Liberty, Napoleon, fine dining, French fries, maybe even the French kiss. But what usually doesn't come to mind is exercise programming. Well, today I'm here to talk to you about French contrast training. The key to this is you only want to utilize this for 2 to maybe 3 weeks tops. And I'm going to do that leading up right into my season that begins in a few weeks. So I'm going to walk you through kind of how I program it and what I also use as part of the accessory lifts within this, as part of my warm-up, my low-level plyometrics, my core exercises, as well as kind of how I finish out with some deceleration and foot and ankle work. So let's get it. So no matter what type of plyometric explosive day that I'm doing, whether it's a complex, whether it's a French contrast, or whether it's just a heavy plyometric explosive day, I'm always going to start with some low-level plyometrics. If you've seen my videos in the past, I've done skips, I've done jumps, anything that's a little bit longer duration but low impact. So today I'm going to do some weighted jump ropes for time. We're looking at somewhere between 45 seconds to a minute. I also like to pair this with some type of core exercise. Early on in the training cycle, I might do more of a stability or rotational exercise that's a little slower in nature, but since I'm getting close to the basketball season, I want to start incorporating a little bit more explosive movement. So here I'm going to do an ice skater med ball toss. So here we go. I usually complete 3 rounds of this, kind of supersetting back and forth with ample time for rest. A big reason I do this is I'm kind of checking the box on the core work, as well as my low-level extensive plyometrics, but it also serves as a great way to warm up and get that body moving, your core body temperature up, as well as get the joints prepared for some of the more explosive movements I'll be during this French contrast, or like I said, any plyometric-based day. So now that I'm nice and warmed up, I've completed my 3 sets of long-duration extensive plyos, as well as my explosive core work. I'm ready to go and begin the French contrast training. Now, before I do that, I did want to dive into it a little bit deeper. So French contrast training is basically a form of a complex, but it's kind of a bigger complex. So instead of typically 2 or 3 exercises, you're going to pick 4 across the 4-speed continuum. So what that means is I'm going to start with a very heavy lift. So for this specific reason, I'm going to do an 80% 1 rep max for around 3 reps. Then I'm going to do something very ballistic, high speed. So in this instance, I'm picking a broad jump because this focus is more hinge based today. Then I'm going to do something like a speed power, where I'm going to be doing something like a hang clean at about 60% of my 1 rep max. And similar to the broad jump, I'm going to do around 3 to 5 reps. And then lastly, I'm going to finish with a assisted speed. So think of a band assisted jump, or even an assisted sprint, which is what I'll be doing, and you do around 4 to 6 reps. Now, between each exercise, you'll only rest for 20 seconds, which is a little different than the complexes I'm used to doing, which is about a 2-minute rest in between each exercise. However, where you gain back some of your rest and recovery is at the end of the set, where you're gonna rest anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. So the goal here is max output on everything that you're doing from a speed, explosive perspective, but make sure you rest long enough so that you're not getting gassed out and you can put max intent into each exercise. So just finished up my 3 rounds of the French contrast, and as I expected, it was definitely a little more taxing than my typical complexes, adding a 4th exercise plus the 20-second rest periods in between, versus having 2 minutes between each. So you're essentially getting 3.5 to 4 minutes of total rest between 4 exercises versus the 6 minutes or so that I get with the 3 exercises on the complexes I usually run. So that said, it was fun though. I like the feel of it, and I definitely will be utilizing it, sparingly, leading into some of my training sessions. Now, I wanted to talk about what I kind of do after my complex and/or French contrast for this one specifically. I always like to do some type of deceleration work, whether it's a banded decel or it could be like a single leg Romanian deadlift with a quicker concentric motion. But in this instance, I'm going to do Nordic curls assisted though. So that's kind of going to be my deceleration. And then I'm always going to do some type of foot, ankle, calf work. And in this instance, I'm going to be doing a standing calf raise and then end with a static isometric for usually anywhere from 30 seconds or so, single leg. So just finished out the workout. Like I said, I like starting off with a good warm-up that's going to accomplish 2 things, some core work as well as your extensive plyometrics. Then you go through the French contrast. The big thing I want to reiterate here is you do not want to utilize this too much because it will fry you out. I can definitely see why after doing one of them, even in comparison to some of my normal complexes that I do. But that said, it's a really good tool, especially to utilize in spurts here and there for a couple of weeks at a time. Like I said, max 3 weeks in a row, but I wouldn't go any more than that. But at the end of the day, it's a really good tool. I hope you guys found this helpful. And I'll be putting out some more videos as well on just the traditional type complexes that I like to run and how I like to program those, as well as what auxiliary types of movements I like to put in. Like I said, my deceleration as well as my calf raise and ankle work. Given how I felt this morning when I woke up, I figured it was good to share kind of the post-workout recovery experience with French contrast training. I can definitely tell you there's a reason they say not to use this too often or for too long, because I was definitely fried out between muscle soreness as well as just my central nervous system. I think a couple things that I would point out is if it's your first time ever doing it, maybe stick to just 2 rounds. If you've never done really performance-based training, steer clear of this and make sure you build up a really good base prior. I do quite a bit of performance-based complexes and I'm still hurting a little bit. The 2 things I think that really got me was I think I should have done an isometric pull versus the 80% 1 rep max. I think it created a little more muscle damage than I wanted to intend. And then secondarily, the assisted sprints I think really tore me up, especially the deceleration portion when I was trying to slow down. But all in all, great tool. Just don't overuse or use for too long. I hope this was helpful and hope you guys subscribe to the channel. And I'll be putting out more content around sports performance training and how to bridge that into your everyday training, as well as a video coming out on my favorite fitness follows and why.